Hello, those of you joining us in the video. I'm sorry, I forgot to record the first part of the lecture, but it was just me covering some of the slides. You'll get all of the demo. And if you guys have any more questions, please just ping me on the Discord about how to do Substance Painter. Okay. So last month we did the exterior. Okay, we're doing the interior this month. That is the opposite of what I expected. Okay, so we're going to be doing the interior. We're going to be focusing on the area over by the desk. If any of you are doing the exterior for your Project 7 assignments, we did demo the exterior last month, so just go watch the archive from last month if you want a follow along. We're going to cover all the same concepts, so you should know what to do, what to be able to do. But if you want to follow along for how to do it, you can watch last month's lecture. Some stuff. Okay, here is our little scene. What? Okay, so here's our little scene. Now, there's a couple of things that we need to know. Number one, let's talk about the smooth preview. Now, there's this thing in Maya, I'm sure some of you have probably noticed, if you press the 3 key, you can make any model kind of smooth itself in Maya, right? And that's pretty handy. Quick question, how many of you guys are game art? Okay, so let's talk about the smooth preview thing. It is super, super useful. But one thing to keep in mind is if you are going to export anything from Maya as a 3D model, that is not what you're going to get. You will get this, which is the actual state of the geometry in Maya. Now, for those of you who are game art, you're going to be like, well, wait a minute. I'm probably going to be using Unreal, right? And today, we're definitely going to be using Substance Painter. And this is what will come over. Now, there is an easy way to solve that. You can still work with the smooth preview and you can still use that tool if you've been taught to use it. The only thing you need to remember is before you're done, press 1, go over to mesh, and you can smooth it. Once, it's a little janky. That smooth preview really smooths it twice, so just smooth it again. This is the actual state of your geometry. This is what you will export. This is what will go into Substance Painter. Now I'm going to undo that so I can talk about that exact same thing next month. Another thing I want to talk about is UVs. So I've UV'd everything in this scene to work with Substance Painter. All right, I could draw this on the screen. So you guys have UV'd stuff before, right? You've textured stuff. Now, I'm pretty sure that they have taught you about the 0 to 1, right? It's the square, got to put all your UVs in it. And you were taught, don't put things outside the 0 to 1 and don't have them overlapping, right? Now, there's a trick to this. So, for majority of the things in our scene, you don't need to worry about those 2 rules. You could have things overlapping and they can go outside the 0 to 1. The exception is anything that is going into Substance Painter, we have to listen to those rules. Now, why the exception, right? So there are two types of texturing. One is, okay, I'm texturing a thing with a tiled texture, which is what Tony showed you how to create last class. And it's going to cover the entire object. So I'm doing like my wooden floor, right? And I got this pattern of like wood, and it just goes across the whole floor. When you do that, you create one little square version of the texture, and it just repeats on and on and on and on in every direction. If that is what you're doing, you can stack your UVs and you can put your UVs outside of 0 to 1. It does not matter. However, if you are painting something that is a little bit more intricate, let's say you're painting a face, you're painting something where you want details to be in a specific place, like what we're going to be doing today, then you have to follow those rules because you're not going to be using a repeating texture. You're going to be using what's called a collage texture. And this is important because we are going to take this into Substance Painter and we are going to bake some of our information from our 3D model into our texture. And that's going to enable all of those procedural things I was talking about. So we have to do that step. However, if you have not working. If you have geometry, let's say you got a bit lazy and you have your geometry kind of like overlapping just a little bit, or if you have geometry over here, when you go to bake that texturing information, it's not going to know what to do here. Because it's going to be like, wait, I have this face on this side of the model and this face on this side of the model, and this is telling me one thing and this is telling me another thing. What does your computer do? It goes, I don't know, and it kind of will render one pixel with one face and the next pixel with another face. It looks stupid. It looks like you were printing and your computer had an aneurysm. So the other thing is, if you have geometry over here, your computer only considers what's in here. It considers everything outside of that as a repeat. So if you have stuff over here, it's not going to render that geometry information into our texture. Instead, it's going to render it here, and over here, you're just going to get what you get. However, if you're clever, and let's say I had a bolt, I duplicated that bolt like 20 times on my scene, I could have that bolt, say right here, and then up here, exactly equal distance, I could have the same bolts and just stack them, and it will receive the texture from this. That is hard to do until you've actually created your texture. So usually what happens is I end up doing that, and it's off, and then I have to go back and adjust it later. Okay, that was a little advanced. Is everybody still with me? All right. How about the online? Are you guys still doing good? Let's check the chat. Everybody doing good? Okay. That should be everything. I think we're ready to go. But check all of your UVs before you export your model. A reminder, you guys are only required to do 2 objects for the Substance Painter part of this assignment. 1 non-metal and 1 metal. We're going to do the desk, the thermos, and the mug because I like doing the mug. It's fun. You can do the desk lamp. However, I'm going to warn you guys up front. Doing the UVs on this is not fun. I tried to UV it. Frank modeled it. Blame him. But I tried doing the UVs on this, and it took me like 2 hours, and I still wasn't done. And I was like, screw it. I'm not texturing it. It's just going to be chrome. Okay. So just for example, here are the UVs on our coffee mug. And I think I UV'd the laptop. No, I didn't. We will not be doing the laptop. So I did the desk. You may be going, well, but there's overlapping UVs, but I was clever. And if you select the desk by material, the desk drawers, the desk base, and the desk legs all have different material sets. So you can have things overlapping on the model because what Substance is concerned about is it thinks about things by material, not by model. So if I was to actually select by material, which, let's see, desk. Select objects by material, nothing's overlapping. Select desk legs, nothing's overlapping. We're not going to texture the desk legs, but here's the base desk. Nothing is overlapping. And then the thermos. There you go. You do have to do UVs on the thermos. I checked them. The UVs that were there are garbage. So we're going to have to do our own UVs for that. Okay, let's export our stuff. All right, so I'm going to export the thermos, the coffee mug, and the desk. And we'll export the laptop just for placement. Don't worry about where I'm putting this. I have my own file organization. It is the way I like it. I got tired of having like different project folders for every single project in shading and lighting. So I just made one master folder and put everything in it and organized it. So that's why my file structure may look a little bit different. Okay. So let's go File, Export Selection, and then go Save. This is going to look a bit different because I have my HUD set up a bit different. But basically, what's important is this window, which should be on the right-hand side of your guys' file save window. You want to make sure that you have animation turned off. We're also going to turn off something I turned on earlier. So ignore that. I had that turned on for another project. File format. So I want to talk about this version conversion thing. So I'm using an old version. There is a new one up to 2020. I want to talk about why I'm using this old version, and you guys can decide to use it or not. So for some reason, the newer versions of this FBX exporter, they do export the models just perfectly if you're going into any Substance package, Unity or Unreal. However, if you wanted to export this model and bring it back into Maya, or you wanted to bring it into 3D Studio Max or Blender or Cinema 4D or any other modeling application, it will not work. I don't know why they did that, but specifically, it will not import into a modeling package. I don't know. However, if you use this older version, it will go into a modeling package. Just a heads up, it's not super important for today. We're not going to be importing back anything back into Maya. However, I like to tell you guys about that in case, 2 years from now, you're trying to export something and you're giving it to somebody and he's like, what? This model, it doesn't exist. That's why. All right. Goodbye, Maya. Hello, Substance Painter. By the way, guys, we are using the Substance Painter that comes in the Adobe package, not the one that was downloaded beforehand. So we have to be using version, what version are we on? Ah. .730. Version 7 should be fine. Okay, so go to new, go to select, and we will go to our project folder. Nope. Where am I? And I've created this little scene FBX folder. I like to put all my FBXs in. You notice I have a couple of extra folders in my Maya folder. There's the scene FBX, FBX history. What? I don't know what that is. And then there's the substance. Sometimes I also make a ZBrush one. But I don't have any ZBrush models for this class. 512 is too small. So here we go. Here's our scene. Oh, and good. We've selected the laptop, which is the most useless thing. So here's our mug. You can see our UVs in there. This screen is orange. The projector orange? No, just this monitor. Okay, well, I won't use it. It's a shame because this screen is much tinier. All messed up. Okay, we're in Substance, so I'm going to start using my tablet. Okay. And we have what? The mug? Good. Now, we go over here into texture set settings. Here is where we bake our mesh maps. So I'm going to go down to here. We're not going to bake normal because we don't have a high resolution mesh. We're not going to bake material ID because we haven't even gotten into that. We are going to bake ambient occlusion. Tony Saxon likes us to use only same mesh. Specifically, we're going to need it for the desk base. Only same mesh, and we'll do it for the desk drawers. Only same mesh. I want to do that on curvature too. So where is it? Is it curvature or is it thickness? It's thickness. Okay. So I'm going to go over here to selection, and I'm just going to pick not the Chromebook, the Mac Chromebook. See, even said not ready for Painter. Not the plastic ring, and not the desk legs. I do want the desk drawers. Yeah, that's all. So once we have all that selected, go to bake selected textures, and it will bake out all of our texturing information from the model. This is the part where if you didn't do collage UVs, this is the part where it will bite you in the butt. Sure. Yeah. Is this yes, it is. I did not record the first part where I was just talking about my slides. I forgot to record that, but everything since I opened up Maya is recorded. That's fine. I'm just more worried about the I understand. Okay, so we've got all of our stuff in here, and there's one more thing I want to do before we really get into it. I want to add some texture files that I previously created. So the idea is that you guys would make this stuff in Photoshop because we taught you how to use Photoshop, and then you would bring it in. So where are my source files? Oh, don't even know what that was. Is that the HDR? Yep, that's our HDR. So I've created two textures that I want to bring in. This one, which is our wood grain. I'm going to bring in a couple of alphas. I've actually downloaded these online. This This is a water splat. And this happy little corgi fella. I am also going to use this because Tony Saxon and I were big fans of the Flash for a while. I know it just makes us look like nerds. Okay, so I brought all these things in. The Zen garden is an environment. The wood grain is a texture. The water ring is an alpha. And everything else is an alpha. And I'm going to want to import my resources. You can pick your poison here. Current session will save it to your current open version of Substance Painter. It saves it in your memory. If Substance Painter closes, you have to re-import everything. Saving it to the project will bloat your project size a little bit, but honestly, that's the one I prefer. Or you can save it to your library forever, which is fine if you're going to use that in the future and you don't want to show up the importing process because you are teaching a lecture for students. There we go. So now we have all of these things in our library, imported assets, and we can use them whenever we want. If we go to our project, we will also see that we have all of the textures that we just generated. And then if we switch that over to all libraries, we just have everything. Okay, cool. I think we're ready to paint. Okay. Let's look at our little mug friend here. Now, I talked before about the default layer and how I can go in here and I could just paint directly on it, right? So here's the problem. Let's say I finished painting this coffee mug and later I'm reviewing this with my art director or my client or my manager or my boss. And he was like, what? You did red. Didn't you miss the memo? That was supposed to be blue. And you're like, oh man, now I got to repaint that whole texture. That's hours worth of work because I can't change this. If I go, okay, blue, right? I did a bunch of intricate work there. I don't want to have to repaint that. This is why I use fill layers. So I'm going to make a fill layer. And I'm going to make it red. You know what? Let's set it up so it's kind of low roughness. I'm going to leave the metal off. It's not a metal coffee mug. That doesn't make any sense. Turn the normal off. We'll leave all that other stuff on. Actually, I'm going to get rid of the normal in my texture channels. And then on this base, this fill layer, I'm going to make, wrong button, a black mask. And so what I can do here is now I can paint in the mask if I add a paint. And now I can paint this in here like this. That way, when that same art director comes by later and yells at me because he decided that it needed to be blue, and then like 3 days later, he decided he needed it to be green, I can change it in 2 seconds and not be really, really frustrated at myself and be like, oh, right, you want it to be green now? I got you. And he's like, no, not that green, a darker green. Okay, like that? Yeah, but a little bit more blue. All right, whatever you want, boss. He's like, oh, I lose the saturation. Okay, sure, whatever. And so on and so forth. We could change the roughness. Heck, we could make it metal. That is why I prefer that sort of workflow. Let's go in and I'm going to add my environment. So this environment is a desert. We want our Zen garden. Why is it blown out all the time? That is also not correct. I imported the wrong file, guys. I'm sorry. By the way, I did a little quick, just in case you didn't see it. The add textures button is down here. So where is our, I know where it is. Nope, that's not what I want. That is what I want. I should really save this. Okay. That is a little bit blown out, so we're going to lower the exposure. There we go. That should look similar to our lighting. We're not going to save any of this lighting out. It's just going to help us texture and make the correct decisions while we're texturing. And then I personally, I like to keep the environment on, but just blur it. All a matter of preference. Okay, so now let's texture the coffee mug. You guys have reference? I do. In fact, let's go over to another screen. Oh, what'd I do? Let's go over to another screen over here. Go over here. So here's our coffee mug. And just so you know, because white backgrounds are not acceptable, I also have this version. And then we have a couple of versions that I have with coffee stains. So we're going to be using that as reference as well. Okay, really the only reason I need this one is so I can color sample for it. So that's what I'm going to do. So let's start with our first fill. Always name your layers. Base. And as I told you, the first thing I want to do is I want to color sample from this coffee mug. There we go. And then I don't need you anymore. Goodbye. Wait, what? Do I not have height? That's weird. I wanted to get rid of normal because we're not going to paint with normal. We'll still have normal. I'm not painting with it. All right, so there we go. Height back in. Now, compared to our roughness, what do you guys think? It's pretty smooth, right? So we want it to have that level of reflectivity. So that means lowering the roughness. Okay. Now, all of this we could have done in Maya. Let's go ahead and let's start creating our logo. Okay, I'm going to go to the assets I brought in. And I'm going to, let's see, white, 0.7, that's pretty white. Let me make it like 0.75. Remember, we don't want to go above 0.8. Why do we not want to go above 0.8? Yeah, it'd be blown out. Okay, So let's add our first mask. And this time, I'm going to add a paint. We're going to use a stencil. And that's why I brought this in. So if we create a stencil, I have this giant Star Labs thing in front of our monitor. And we can hold S and is this middle mouse? Yeah, it's middle mouse. Right mouse will kind of pan it around. Middle mouse will shrink it. We can do that in 2D or we can do it in 3D. So we can actually go over to our UVs as well. We can hold S and we can shrink that down. Position it. Look at our reference again. Damn it, technically it's reversed. Is it that way on the blue one too? Blue one going the other way? Tell me it is, because I'll feel less like an idiot. Nope, they're on the same side. Cool. Well, we're doing it the other way. So I'm going to do this. So you could do it in the viewport. We could paint in here. It's just I'm not going to because like getting it lined up so it's kind of natural is easier to do in the UVs. So or the 2D viewport. So I'm going to kind of line it up here and paint in here. Okay, so this is good except for one small problem. From our camera angle in our render scene in Maya, we're not going to see this. So I'm going to move this back closer to the handle. And there we go. Now, again, we could have done all this in Photoshop. But what we're going to do next is going to be different. Actually, first, let's go to this layer because I can take this now and I can change the roughness here. I could make it super glossy, but if I look at my reference, the paint is actually less glossy than the rest of the mug. So I'm going to increase the roughness. So there's going to be a little bit difference in roughness, which is kind of cool because now if I go and I press C, you can see my base color, my metallic, which is nothing, and my roughness, I can actually see the logo in my roughness. Normal, not anything, mask. Anyway, press M to go back to full material, and there's our coffee mug. So let's talk a little bit about this coffee cup. Now, let's pretend that we're talking about something that is not a coffee cup. Let's pretend that we're talking about the cutting board in the exterior scene. So, how many of you have a cutting board in your house or your apartment or whatever? Most of you. Good. How many of your cutting boards look brand new like that? Almost everybody raised their hand, and now nobody is. That's good. How many of your cutting boards look much closer to this? Pretty much everybody, right? So this is what I'm talking about. It's very easy to make this cutting board. However, nobody's cutting board looks like that unless you're in an IKEA or a Sears. Or you had just bought a cutting board and never used it. This is kind of what I'm getting at. In a real environment, things should show wear and tear. This desk has a couple of marks on it. Full Sail keeps it fairly clean, but stuff is going to get built into it over time regardless. You know, for example, look at the scuffs on that wall near the outlet. There's a black mark about halfway up. Things like this happen. There's a whiteboard, right? It's got these marks that just won't go away. Somebody's going to come up and clean them professionally later, but it's going to show its age. And that's the sort of thing we need to think about, because How many of you guys are seriously thinking about being an environment artist or a texture artist? Anybody? I'm going to tell you this. This is the sort of thing that gets people jobs. Anybody can make this cutting board. Only a good texture artist or an environment artist can make this cutting board. And you should be thinking about that with everything you do. If you're playing video games, if you're playing movies, look at stuff like this. They put this detail into everything. Anybody played Spider-Man? Go look. It doesn't matter, Miles Morales or the one with Peter Parker. The Insomniac one. They did stuff like this all over the map, everywhere. I know, I've attended the GDC talks. But that's the sort of level I want you guys to start thinking about. Start thinking about object history. It's not enough to go, this is a cutting board. Start to think, what has happened to that cutting board? What's happened to that desk? What's happened to that thermos? Now, granted, some of our stuff looks pretty new because we clean it, except for when it doesn't look new. See? Clear coat's gone. Well, that's fun. But that's the sort of stuff I want you guys to start thinking about is objects and how they they get degraded over time. And nothing should look like it's been in a dump for 5 years, unless your environment is in a dump. That's what we're gonna do. So let's go back to our coffee mug. Let's look at this reference that I brought up, and let's talk about what might have happened to our coffee mug. Because a coffee mug that is sitting on a desk has not just come out of the dishwasher, right? There's coffee in that mug. Or maybe not. I like to drink milk and juice out of things with my coffee mugs. I'm not a coffee drinker. But maybe our guy is, who's sitting at his desk. Why is he at his desk? What's he doing? Probably drinking coffee. Why is he drinking coffee?
He's working.
He's working. An all-nighter maybe. Maybe he's got to finish his slating and lighting homework before tomorrow because that's the deadline. So that's the sort of thing I want you guys to think about. So if he's drinking coffee, or she, or the other, or they, that's the pronouns I'm supposed to use. What has happened to that coffee? So obviously we're going to have like coffee drips on it. We might have some coffee spilt on the desk. We might have some water rings on the desk. You know, I've had students have me put lipstick on it before, which I can do. I actually had to look up reference for that the first time. But yeah, that's the sort of things we're going to do. Anything else you guys want me to put in there? Cracks? Okay, so cracks is a little bit tricky because number one, a lot of times we would need cracks to be in the geometry. It was going to be a serious crack. Coffee mug, probably not, because if it was cracked that badly, it wouldn't be holding together. Yeah?
What about just chips?
That would have to be in the geometry. The other thing is a coffee mug with a crack in it, you're probably not going to use because it probably wouldn't hold the coffee very well. But chips, we would actually have to chip out of the geometry, which is not something we can do in texture. That's something we should have done in the model. Which we can do that, just not in this class because I'd have to go remodel the cup. But I like the spirit, both of you. Okay, so let's sit down and let's do just some coffee stains and drips. Sorry, teaching a full lecture with a mask on is very exhausting. So sometimes I actually export the coffee so I can see how high it is. But let's go ahead. and take this reference image. Yes, I was watching a TED Talk earlier. And I always like to color sample from a reference. So take like right there. Oh, oops. Let's make a new layer and color sample from our reference. There we go. This is what our coffee would look like. So coffee stains have high roughness, but actual liquid coffee has low roughness. So we're going to increase the roughness. So if you have like the little drip, that's high roughness, but any of the like stains is typically low roughness. Not metallic. We don't need to add height. Maybe we'll try and add a coffee drip. Okay. So let's add our black mask. And we're going to use a number of these tools that I haven't shown you yet. So first off, let's go. We're going to go to all libraries. Let's go to, where are they? Here. Smart masks. Are there any ones that we can use in here? We can try this one. It usually doesn't work. That's just plain silly. So I've just applied this smart mask. And so we got all these settings to use. The level is definitely too high. There we go. We could have a couple of random drips. Contrast, let's increase that a little bit. Why are there coffee drips on the handle? I have to paint that out manually. Well, that's not useful. Why is that even there? What is that supposed to do? Scratches? No, okay. All right, so we'll leave that one. But now we're going to add what I call a fill. So add a fill. And what this is this is just a blank layer that we can then plug something into. So I've got this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to this. X that out. Nope, that's alphas. This. And so this is all of our like procedural patterns. So I could take this in here and I could put anything in here. I could put this in here. I mean, I don't know why I would, but I could. What I'm going to look for are, where are they? So there's one specific one that I like. This one. So we're going to put this in here. Now let's adjust the balance. Let's adjust the contrast first. There we go. The balance. And then I'm actually going to go over to the 2D, 3D, and we're going to adjust the position. Right. So there we go. That's a lot of coffee drips. Let's move it. Now, you're probably already thinking, that's a pretty disgusting cup of coffee. I probably wouldn't be drinking out of that. We're gonna go a little far and then we're gonna go back. It's easier to get a bunch of detail in and remove it later than it is to get the perfect amount of detail in on the first pass. Now, another thing is that we already lost our drips from before. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna change this blend mode to linear dodge add or lighten max. And you can see now our drips are added back in. Just a few of them. Honestly, probably didn't even need the drips, but whatever. And let's do one more fill just for fun. Increase the contrast. That one's actually probably much better. And we're going to add that one as light and max as well. Now, one cool thing we can do before we do any manual control is I can go in here and I can take these layers and I can take this one and I can just lower the actual layer. It's like, it's still there, still doing its job. We just kind of lowered it. It's actually way lower than I wanted to go on that one. Okay. It's still disgusting. Let's add a paint. And this is my little secret, guys, if you're ready for this. So I'm going to go to the brushes. I'm going to use that paint layer, and I'm going to grab the Dirt 2 brush, which is my favorite brush. Where is my 2D, 3D button? You're mirroring. Here it is. And so here, we have a bunch of detail. I'm going to lower my stroke opacity. Actually going to increase the brush size. And where I don't want this detail, I'm just going to start painting black in our paint layer on our mask. And so what I'm doing is, little by little, I'm painting that detail out where we don't want it. Actually, probably could raise that back up so that our coffee mug isn't quite as disgusting as we had it. And then a shift right click will move our light. You can actually see where we're texturing. I am just trying to get rid of detail on the bottom. And now we shouldn't have any on the handle. So I'm going to show you guys another little trick. Go to 2D, 3D. Because we shouldn't have any on the bottom or on the handle, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to use the geometry selection tool, go to UV shell, set it to black, and it will just remove it from the handle. Just like that. So now we go back, the handle's completely clean. Because honestly, how would we get coffee on there in the first place? I left the coffee stains on the inside, figured they'd probably be pretty, that would be the worst area. But there we go. And if we look at it from our camera, we can see a little bit of detail, which gives it a little bit more life, right? Now, before we move on from the coffee mug, there was one other thing you guys forgot about. Fingerprints. That would be on a coffee mug, right? So let's go ahead and add that. So I do have reference for fingerprints somewhere. On the wine bottle. That's terrible reference. All right, you're just gonna have to trust me on this one. Add a black mask. So I like to always start by doing a smart mask. There are no good fingerprint smart masks. Let's see if there's one other one I can get in here. Actually, dust. Let's go with dust subtle. What does that look like? That'd be under the coffee stains. I don't know if dust subtle is very subtle, guys. What do you think? There we go. Actually, it has the dust where it wouldn't be. It would be like at the bottom. You know what? No, I just don't like that one. We're getting rid of it. We're going to go straight to the next part, which is a fill. Go over to these guys, and there's a bunch of dust ones. So first off, let's add something like this. Ugh. Ugh, I don't really like that. Change the tiling. Are we gonna lower the balance? I don't know. Looking pretty bad. How about this one? Better. Maybe if we lower the layer. Yeah. This shouldn't be too dusty because it probably was washed before somebody put coffee in it. I just want to put the fingerprints on here, really. And fill. And then we'll do this. And we'll do 3. That's too small. 2. There we go. Do a linear dodge add. So I do have a trick we're going to do later, guys. We're going to go into the base color and we're going to lower the opacity on base color, but we're going to leave the opacity for our roughness. So we'll still see our fingerprints even as we lower the base color because it's going to be primarily in the roughness of the dust, which is what I'm trying to get. I'm going to raise it back up just so we can see what we're painting with, though. I was moving the mask. Here's another trick. I'm going to add fill. White. I'm going to take one of these, which is like if someone actually wiped the thing off. And instead of changing it to add, I'm going to change it to subtract. I thought that would have done a better job. What is that doing? Oh, it actually is removing it. Let's go back to normal real quick. Change this to like 2. There we go. There we go. Now we can actually see what it's doing. And of course, I'm not going to finish without adding a paint. So now we go to our brushes. We grab my favorite brush. Oh. Change it to black by pressing X, and then we just kind of paint out some of that detail. Actually, you wouldn't touch the bottom because that's where all the hot coffee is. Now, one last thing before we're done. Believe it or not, there is a fingerprint brush. So we could take this and we could go back to white, lower the brush size, and we could add our own fingerprint. Ah, too much scatter, too much spacing. Position jitter, that's the problem. Spacing. Again, there wouldn't be dust inside the coffee cup. There would be coffee in the coffee cup, not dust. Oh, and one last thing to show you. So I can change this fingerprint alpha. I can go over to, these are alphas. These are alphas. We could change this and take a whole hand, put that in there. There we go. We got a hand in there somewhere. There we go. That looks stupid. I'm undoing it. Okay, so now we're gonna go back to our layer. And like I told you, we're gonna leave the roughness turned all the way up. You can actually change this to roughness, height, metallic. We're gonna leave the base, we're gonna take the base color. We're only gonna lower the opacity of the base color. We're gonna lower it pretty low because the base color, like, not off. I'm thinking like 10. So the base color is still kind of there, but what we're really gonna see now is we're going to see the roughness more than anything else. And we can really see the roughness when the light hits it. And that's kind of what a real coffee cup looks like. Okay, I'm going to try something with you guys that doesn't normally work, but we're going to try it anyway. Wet coffee. Let's go ahead and get ourselves like a nice dark brown coffee color. High or low roughness because it's wet coffee. Let's put a black mask on and let's try and get an actual like coffee drip. It may or may not work. It usually doesn't work on this one because it's so small. But let's try it. So these are particle brushes and they're a lot of fun when they work, which is not what just happened there. So maybe if I lower the particle life, it will work. Nope. Normal factor. These are kind of a pain in the butt. Size ratio. Even smaller, please. Yeah, it's just kind of going everywhere, isn't it? I want like one good drip. That's all I want. Those are all the options. Wow, that one's really simple. All right, let's show some of these off. That was the strong leaks. Let's try the lower level leaks. Let's see how that looks. Okay, if we can get less particles, that might actually work. Oh, there's so many options. Nope. Well, it might work. There we go. Got like some wet coffee drips. Let's try and increase the particle life. Yeah. Jonathan's asking, is this something you would alpha in some fingerprints? You could, but there's already alphas that they give you. But you could make your own. There we go. We have a couple of drips down from the top. All right, that was fantastic. We had like 3 drips. That's exactly what I wanted. So they're like fresh coffee drips. Perfect. So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take this, I'm going to add a little bit of height to it. So they're kind of like coming off the cup because they're like fresh streams of coffee that just came down. Nah, the height might have been a bad idea. I'm not gonna lie, I was mainly showing you guys this so that I could show you how the particle brush works. So there we go. There's a bunch of cool ones. There's fracture, which is like breaking glass for those of you who wanted cracks. They don't work particularly well on the coffee mug. There's laser impacts, electric lights. This one's fun if you want to do like a techno disco. Broken glass. Then there's this weird sort of organic thing. But the whole point is to give you guys like a texture that is literally procedurally generated each time. Anyway, that's it. I'm gonna lower the opacity on that. But there we go. That's our coffee cup. Probably actually don't need that. Should we keep it? What do you guys think? Should we keep it? What? All right, we'll keep it. A little bit much, but we can keep it. Okay. So we can start the desk. We're not going to get all the way through it before break. I want to take break at 3. So we'll go ahead and start it, and then we'll take our break, and then we'll come back and we'll finish that and the thermos, and then we'll go back into Maya. Okay, so this is kind of it for our coffee cup. We're going to leave that where it is, and then we're going to go on to the next material. By the way, you can separate these out when you bring them in by objects. We could have done the desk separate, then the coffee mug and the thermos all as individual objects. I prefer to bring them all in because that kind of gives me a better sense of presence when I'm doing the desk itself, because the location of the coffee mug, the location of the laptop, and the location of the thermos would change how the textures look. So I kind of like bringing them in just to kind of see where things are. That's not required. It's just what I personally like to do. What is it? I was talking with Adam Fadka earlier this week, and he says he likes to say, there are many ways to the pizza party. Is that what he used to say? What'd you say? Oh yeah, he does say the za. Call it za. You know, for someone who can't eat pizza, he's very concerned about pizza. Okay, so let's go to our desk base. And now we're going to work with this. I'm going to make a new base. If you guys remember, we brought a bunch of textures in, and we only really used the Star Labs logo for our coffee mug. What? Everything. Give me everything. I want Star Labs, yeah. As I mentioned, Tony Saxton and I both kind of like the Flash. So when I was making this lecture, he was like, ooh, make it a Star Labs mug. And I was like, okay. So we brought in this wood grain texture. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag this over here into our base color. And this is how Painter and Photoshop work together. You can make a nice pattern in Photoshop and just bring it into Substance Painter and utilize it here. This way, you're not limited to using the pre-made textures. The smart materials, you can literally make any image that you can find on, that you can get on your computer and bring that into Substance Paint. The world is your oyster. If you want your desk to have this texture right here on these tables, you can take a picture of that, bring it into Photoshop, make it tile, and then bring it back into Painter and use that for your desk and your seat. That being said, you better take a picture of that desk so that you have that for reference for your submissions. That's not the only way. You could use Substance Sampler to make it work too. So here's our texture. We're going to increase the tiling. And I always rotate it. So I don't like my wood grain going the other way. Thank you. Come on, there we go. We could offset it. All right, that's a good start. Let's lower the roughness a little bit. Let's raise the roughness a little bit. Okay. So that's our base. All right, guys, what should we do to our desk?
Water stain, images,
What'd you say?
water stain,
You mean coffee stains?
that too.
So yeah, let's do some coffee stains. Coffee stains would be more prevalent than water stains. Water stains probably wouldn't do permanent damage to wood, but coffee does. Ooh, boy, does it ever. So we do some coffee stains because number one, they would also be fresh because we're clearly drinking coffee. And also they would do more damage to the wood. So we can do that because they would stain it brown. Whew. Sorry, I'm trying to use my blue light glasses, but they don't work because every time I breathe, it fogs it up from the mask. Anything else? Coffee stains, what else? Scratches, yes. Dust, yes. Let's write this down. I don't know why I did that separate.
Some anonymous food stains.
Poop stains?
Food stains.
Food. Like what? What do you guys do to your desks? Can't be anonymous though. What food stain is it? Because we need reference.
Ketchup.
Ketchup what?
You okay?
Am I okay?
Yeah.
I don't know, I just kicked it with my shoe.
Oh, okay. Oh, you hate your shit.
No.
Yeah, that hurts.
If it was my shin, you would have seen me react. Okay, so ketchup. A true, pure-blooded American would want ketchup on it. Okay, I think that's a good enough list. Anything more, and we're going to start running out of time. Also, you know, texturing is all about the subtlety. Because if you notice, we put all that work in that coffee mug and we can barely see it, but you could notice it if we turn the layers off. So annoyingly, good textures are one of those things that's really appreciated when you, that's really only appreciated when you see it done wrong. You don't, when it's done right, you don't even notice it. But then when it's done poorly, you're like, what the fuck? Why is that texture terrible?
I think that's mostly
A lot of it is, yeah. I think that's why people like being character modelers, because when you do a cool character, they're like, yeah, that character is cool looking. Of course, it would look terrible if somebody didn't texture it and light it correctly. All right. So what are we gonna start off with? I'm thinking scratches. What do you guys think?
I second that.
All right. So as we've already seen, I have a bunch of reference for wood scratches. What I like to do actually though, for my color, so I'll come in here, I'll switch to base color. I'll color sample from the brightest part of the source I can find that moved at the last second. And then I'll just bring the value up a little bit more, the saturation down a little bit more. And so now we have our kind of base. It would be high in roughness because it's a scratch. It would not be metallic. And we would lower the height. And then we apply our black mask to our material. And now let's go check these out. Edge scratches. Let's look at that. That is pretty intense. Don't know if I like that one. I don't think I like that one. I don't normally like it. What'd you say? The whole thing somehow. Or a dog. Dog. It was a 4-year-old kid. You seem to have experience. Do you have a 4-year-old in your life in some way?
Well, no, but when I was growing up, my brother and I, we had friends that have loved it. Can't say I was, but
I swear it wasn't me. So I'm trying to get like some good edge damage going, but honestly, Frank really needed to bevel this desk. Frank. Maybe at some point I'll go in and bevel it. Just like that slight bevel would make that tool work better. This is the one that usually actually works a little bit. Edge damage. What is that? Also, I can clearly tell right now I have too much of this height in here. Should be subtler. All right, so let's adjust our smart mask here. Balance. I really don't know what that is, and that's bothering me. So there we go. That looks less chewed on, right? Just a little bit of detail around the edge. To be honest, none of these smart masks are useful for scratches. So we're not going to use any of those. We're going to instead add some fills because there is a really good fill for this. So go over here to the thing that looks like a little fabric pattern. And this is where our fills are. And so type in scratch and you will find scratches rough, grunge scratches rough. Drag that into your fill, and this bad boy has a lot of fun stuff. It's almost a smart material on its own. Just increase the scale. Let's go 4 times. Yeah. Look at that. We got a lot of scratches, probably too many scratches. That's okay because we want to go too far and then come back. I I like double scratch because that makes the scratch a little bit more prominent. Dust intensity. And we'll leave the dust off because we're going to come back and do dust. Scratch masking. There's one option I'm looking for to turn off. Scratch length, scratch dirtiness. Oh. I'll leave that where it was. Scratch spot, that's what I don't like. The spots don't look correct. So there we go. I'm gonna offset this there. Come on. There we are. Okay. And now we can come in and add another fill. And this time, I'm going to take one of these regular grunges. And what I'm going to do to this one is I'm going to set this on subtract to remove some of our scratches, or at least lighten them. There we go. I don't even know how that comes up. And then we're going to add a paint. Grab our brush, and guess what, guys? There's a brush custom made for scratches. Not scratches 3. That's not the good one. You want scratches 2. Just got to change some of the options. For some reason, they always make like, they have this flow thing where the maximum's right where you want it, and then the minimum is way too low. What?
Are these bills affecting your height at all? Or is it all uniform?
So they will affect the height if I put height into here, because all of these options are filling the layer. What the mask is doing is anywhere where that is, those adjustments will be made. So it's easy to think of it when we're thinking of color, but let's turn the color off for a second. So you can see, if we were to turn, you know, I want that to be a little bit more subtle, but if we were to turn height off, now it's really just roughness. But if we look here, we can see the roughness is doing its thing, right? So if we add all those back in, we can kind of see what's going on. Again, if we turn the color off, no. There we go. That's what I want it to look like. So let's go back in here and let's paint some scratches. Now, I'm 100% aware this is too many scratches. I'm just putting a couple in to show you guys that you can kind of hand place details if you want. I like to do that. Gives it that kind of hand touched feel. And then we're of course going to go in and grab our Dirt 2 brush. Is this doing anything? Oh, I know what's going on. Stupid minimum size. Where they really show up is in the roughness. And then okay. That's it for scratches. What else do we want to do? Let's do the coffee stains. Yeah. I was thinking that. So good job reading my mind. All right, normally I would go and color sample, but we're getting close to break and I want to try and get this done. So it's going to kind of get like a nice brownish color. Probably actually going to need to be darker to contrast with the desk. And well, if they're fresh, they'll be wet. But if they're old, we should actually have two groups.
Pressure is really the same, you know?
You're right.
Yeah, we're bringing up deep questions.
You are bringing up the deep questions. So they wouldn't affect the height. You are bringing up the deep philosophical questions about coffee stains. You know, it's funny, but this actually is the life of a texture artist where you sit here and you really think about like brick patterns. My girlfriend is like, you're weird. I'll stop and like look at a texture on a wall and be like, look at that. It's amazing. You see that? I was taking a buddy for this is a friend of mine who's a texture artist at Ubisoft, and he has been for years. He's been an artist longer than me. We were walking in Savannah and I was taking for a tour and he stopped and he's like, look at this texture on this wall. It's amazing. And we had tourists like staring, or we had people staring at us, staring at the wall. And they're like, what are those guys doing? People were like trying to see what we could see in the wall. And we're like, wall. I also take pictures of things where I'll be like, oh, look at that wood grain. So I got pictures of like tabletops and stuff on my phone.
I do it with lighting. You know,
It's your 3D art side. Man, I really wish I found a use for this stitches brush. Photoshop added a bunch, when Adobe bought Substance, they added a bunch of these Kyle's brushes. The worst thing about them is they all say Kyle's brush at the beginning, so like finding them is terrible. What were you gonna say? I have no idea. He must be important enough that Adobe put his name on all the brushes, though. Of course, they didn't put his last name, so we have no idea who Kyle is. I've said that before in lectures and had people who are standing in the background named Kyle, and they're like, "Hey, what's wrong with my brushes?" All right. Enough joking around. Let's get to our coffee stains. So there's a real good brush for coffee stains. It's the Spots brush. And should I? No, these are going to be localized effects, so we don't want to use a fill. We're just going to paint straight in. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to put these in. What's going on? What is this? Why is that there? Uh-oh. What'd I do? I broke it. Oh, I know what I did. Okay, but seriously though, how do I get rid of those stitches?
Maybe it's just a preview. Maybe the actual brush is still doing this one.
Yeah. Oh, it's the minimum flow. That was it. Is it? Is it? And paint. Are we not painting? What's going on? This is so annoying. And infected by the stitches. Now we got a leaf. Wait, I know what this is. It's the, get rid of that. There we go. I fixed it. And then we got to fix the minimum flow. There we go. This is very hard to see though, isn't it? What's our texture resolution for this? 1024? That should be good enough. Maybe it is the color. Let's try changing that. Saturation. Hmm. I don't usually have this problem. That'll help. Oh, it was set to gray. There we go. That's what I wanted it to look like. Okay. So now let's increase the spacing a little bit. And then we'll put some over here by the thermos because maybe we put our coffee over here a few times. Wait a minute. No size jitter. My coffee cup isn't changing sizes. And then, if you guys remember, I brought in a special alpha. This. I brought it in specifically for the coffee because we can change out the alpha. And see how that gives us a little bit of a different look there. What'd you say? Oh, it's the same mug. He just moves it a lot.
It spills it a lot.
Well, it's because he's drinking too much coffee and he's shaking. He is a massive coffee drinker. We'll add one fill. See if we can find a fill that'll go with it good. The corgi would what?
That would probably help out with the corgi stain.
We'll do something with the corgi. It's not going to be a corgi stain. It'll be like a corgi brand or print. Actually, one time someone was like, well, maybe the person has a daughter who has paint, so I had to put blue paint splashes on the desk. Okay. What was I doing? Oh, I remember. My memory is the worst. Oh, this one. It's always great. Obviously, yeah, let's just leave it there.
It's a lot of coffee.
Just leave the default. No, we're gonna tile it 4 times. Just be patient here. Work with me, not against me. Yeah, it's called a coffee drinker.
On the front too?
Stay with me, guys. I've got a plan. Okay, so yes, we're not going to leave all of this on here. Come on. I'm going to add another paint right above it. And we're going to go. I mean, you've seen me do this 3 times already. We go too far. We get the trusty dirt 2 brush. Here's the funny thing. The other staff, they give me shit for liking this dirt 2 brush, talking this dirt 2 brush up. And then they try it and they're like, oh, there's a really good brush. I'm like, I know. Dirt 2 is the best, man. All right. Let's paint out a bunch of coffee that we don't want. And we should still have this layer. Thing. Yeah, we do still have that layer. It's just like impossible to see right now. All right. That way. Oh, no, that didn't work. We'll go to face. There we go. So you have a vertex, face, object, and UV shell, I think. UV shell is the one I use the most. So there we go. That's what we have now from that big fill layer. And if we add, oh. Wow, we really cannot see that at all, can we? That is super weird. So I would rather have these that we hand painted, but I guess they're just too subtle. Which probably means I need to add them back in. But we should be able to see them. So weird. Oh, wait. All right, never mind. I'm getting rid of that because I'm painting black. Oh. Thank you. There we go. Now we can see our hard work. Oh, there's so many options. It's easy to forget what's going on. Size jitter. Yeah, I know it's getting a little messy over here. There we go. Okay, so that's our coffee stains. I think now is a good time to take a break. We went way over that 10 minutes I was gonna do. We'll do the dust and the catch up when we get back. But everybody take a good 15-minute break. I'll see you back at 3:30. Recording. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. So we've got our coffee stains, we've got our scratches. Next up, dust, right? What do you think, guys? Dust? Ketchup. Okay. Fine. Let's do ketchup. I have to figure out how to do ketchup. Okay. So we need to use Google. Come on, Google. Google's going down. Let's get a tab. Don't pay attention to the roll. Okay. Ketchup stains. Spains. No, that's not what blood looks like. That's just what ketchup looks like. There we go.
That's a crime scene.
It's a crime scene of ketchup.
I'm pretty sure.
You guys laugh. When we were kids, my sister was trying to carry a bowl of SpaghettiO upstairs and she tripped. My mom replaced the carpet, repainted all the walls. She's like, I couldn't get rid of it. There we go. That's what ketchup looks like. It wouldn't have the clumpiness because like somebody would have tried to wipe it off. Well, let's assume that our person remotely cares what his desk looks like. Stop trying to open up things. I just want that like highlighting to go away. Okay, so yeah, it's really, it's not going to look largely different. So let's go for like a ketchup-y red. Actually, we're going to need, we should probably color sample. There we go. That's actually really good. So that's what ketchup looks like. Now, here's the trick. We're not going to like leave it like that. We're going to multiply it. So there we go. We've got ketchup all over our desk. Let's do black mask. I will briefly consider using some smart masks. But I'm probably going to go with no, because I doubt they have a ketchup stained smart mask. Unsurprisingly, they do not. So let's use our friend that we just had. There we go. And I'll multiply it by 2. Let's go even smaller. Let's do 3. And then 2D, 3D will kind of offset it. Where should our biggest stain be? Where does this guy eat his dinner? Where do you think? Does he eat it over here on the left or the right? Left?
When you fix the ketchup.
Okay, that is disgusting.
That's why the coffee cup's so dirty.
Coffee cup is not that dirty. We removed a lot of it.
Yo, pizza rolls with coffee, it's though. You get the.
You kids are strange. Okay. Guys, bring it back. We're gonna add another fill and we're gonna subtract because that is just honestly too much ketchup. All right. Yeah, but remember, we're subtracting with this. So we're using it to get rid of the previous ketchup. That is so funky and trippy. Can't see what I'm doing. There we are. Let's try that. Not bad. Although we've got some over here too. I guess we're just that crazy with our ketchup. Let's add another fill. And two things that I can never do is type and spell, which makes my life very difficult. Smudgy. Let's use this one. Let's have some fun. What would this look like? Subtract. It looks like nothing. It looks terrible. There we go. Somebody tried to clean it up. Disgusting. I hope you guys are happy. Oh, I forgot about the directional light. So we could do. I'm really just trying to make it look less gross. Okay, there we go. We've got our ketchup blood stains. And finally, we'll do our paint. Our dirt 2 brush. There we go. We've got our ketchup stains, which honestly, at this point, they do look a little bit too much like blood for my taste. So we're going to adjust the saturation and color and brightness so that they look a little bit more ketchup-y. And let's give it a little bit of height. What do you guys think about that? There we go, clumpy. We don't need we actually don't need metallic on anything but the base layer. Okay. Well, we do have some detail from it. And this new version of Substance is much better at getting bump maps. Let's make that. There we go. All right, you got your gross ketchup. I hope you're happy. I had to do that. Look at that. We can see all of our ketchup stains. Oh, we didn't adjust the roughness. We should lower the roughness in the ketchup stains, right? Okay, dust has high roughness, no metallic, no height. Yeah, that's good for dust. Okay. Add a black mask. Dust. There are so many dust options, guys. You can do, what was that? Edge rust dust? Edge is dusty. Sand dust. Soft dust. Dirty dust. Dust occlusion. Dust plastic. Dust dirty. Dust. Dust too soft. Soft edges. Let's try dust soft edges. Not in the ketchup. That is entirely useless. Surface dust. That's not bad. Let's try dust subtle. I like dust subtle. I like dust subtle a lot. Stupid ketchup. The ketchup is distracting me. I'm going to turn it off. There we go. We can see it kind of working in the roughness. That's good. All right. That is a good start. Maybe we'll layer on another one. Dust wide edges. That's new. I haven't tried that one before. Oh, it's got a whole bunch of things with it. What grunge is it using? Grunge map 08. The levels. I should really use the levels thing more. Okay, let's turn the balance up. Wait. only doing it in there. We could just have that and that. Yeah, well, you know, there we go. Okay, let's add a fill. Dust spread. I like that one. Okay, now our dust is starting to get intense. So I'm gonna add one more. And that is gonna be one of the wipes. Yeah, I like this one. Grunge wipe smudgy. Now, it looks silly the way we're doing it right now. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to use it to subtract. I could use this to, instead of add, I could multiply. That is taking everything away. All right, what does our stuff look like now? Not too bad. So we've got dust, but somebody tried to clean it up, so we don't have a lot of dust on the desk. I don't even think I need to paint. I'm going to leave that where it is. We've got ketchup in our dust, though. Hope you guys are okay with that. And finally, we might have to get rid of some ketchup because it might get in the way. We're going to put a nice sticker over here on the top. So I'm going to pick a nice little color here. Super shiny. And we're going to give it a little bit of height. No metal. Add black mask. And this is the sole reason that I brought in this corgi. That and because I like corgis. So we're going to bring this in as a stencil and literally just kind of float him right where we want him. And then there we go. Somebody stuck a corgi sticker to our desk. Aha. All right, guys, that's pretty much it. I do like to pause here and kind of show you guys. Here, why not? We'll make it the ketchup color because you had so much fun with that. Oh, we should have actually done this in the ketchup. Let's do it in the ketchup. We'll make another layer. We'll make another paint layer. And we briefly talked about these before, but I want to show them off again. Dang it. Where did I get? Get back over there. So there's a bunch of these brushes. Like I said before, we were using them for our coffee, but we could use them here for like a puddle. Ketchup everywhere. It's actually supposed to be if you have like an earth thing and you have like an indent, it'll puddle up in like the dents. Or if you had like a car and the car had a dent in it, you wanted it to be like a scene that just rained, you would apply that and it would pool up the water in the dent. Here's the organic brush if you wanted like organic growth of ketchup. Here's our leaks that we used before. Not handy there, but if you do leak strong, woo, ketchup particles everywhere. Not super useful on a flat surface. Splat is probably better. Yeah. There you go. Actually, that's not bad. Probably put it like right here. We'd have to lower the opacity, but not bad. I do always like showing off this one, so I'm going to show it off real quick. This is the fire brush. It will burn up the side like fire. Actually, if you use it on the bottom, it will burn through to the top. Because it's meant to simulate how fire would actually burn something. Fracture is fun. We're getting it spreading ketchup cracks all over our desk. Broken glass. It'd be like pew, pew, like you got rocks that hit your windshield. And then laser impact. This is really only useful if you're fighting stormtroopers. Of course, it's coming in ketchup. And Rococo. That is not Rococo. Sandstorm's another global one, like the puddle. And small veins. That one's not even really showing up. So we'll see veins so you guys can see. You have to adjust that, but it's actually meant for painting veins if you're painting a character that has like veins showing. So they're pretty cool. I just like to show you guys them because honestly, it's fun. I am going to, I know you guys are going to hate me for this. I'm going to lower the opacity on our ketchup because it is a little gross and disgusting. Also, the height. Might have gone a little too far on the height. Gross. Okay, there's our disgusting desk. Honestly, we should probably dial it back a little bit, but you guys were having fun with the ketchup, but so I'll leave it in there. But honestly, this is kind of what I would expect. Maybe a little bit less coffee. There we go. So here's a little thing. Notice we have these drawers that we didn't do at all. I made them a different material because I wanted them to actually have a different texture, which I forgot to import. Give me a sec. So substance textures, no. Substance source files, wood grain, side table, there we go. Texture. Import to project, import. Okay. So we've done all this work and we want consistency with our textures for the drawers because those are going to be wood as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take everything here, not the sticker, take everything here and I'm going to put it in a folder. And I'm going to name this folder 2021_11_desk. And then I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to create smart material. And so what this is going to do is right here, you'll see we've just created 2020-2021-11 desk. So now if we go over to this desk drawer, we can literally drag this in here and it brings in all of the material presets and the fill layers, everything we set up except for the paint layers will be in line with the desk that we've already created. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to that texture I just imported. Where is it? Where the bugger is it? It's where?
One before, yeah, the left side.
Okay, yeah, here it is. So it's right here. Oh, these are textures. Okay, now I get what the mentality is behind this. What is this? Alphas, right? Sorry, these symbols are new and like they're not super intuitive. Anyway, so all I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this base layer. I'm going to swap out the base color. Okay, so now our scratches are a little bit, the color's a little bit off. So let's go ahead and we'll get a color that works more sense with that wood. And then saturation, raise the value. So there we go. Now we have scratches in there too. We could go back into that same paint layer and we could manually paint these as well. I don't want to do it with the brush that I have right now because that would be silly. And then we have to make adjustments to our dust because that's a little bit too intense. So I would honestly just take the color and lower the color, leave the roughness in there. And that's it. That's all we got to really do. Everything else is fine. We even have some ketchup splattered on there. I don't know if you guys noticed. It's a little bit harder to see now that the color is darker. But if we go in here, I can tell you that we definitely still have some ketchup splattered. Maybe if we change the color a little bit, we can see our ketchup splatters. Oh, it's because it's set to multiply. That's why. Set it to normal. There we go. We have our ketchup splatters there too. It's disgusting. It's like a ketchup bomb went off. Here, let's dial it back a little bit. This guy really likes his ketchup is all I can say. Anyway, that's our desk. What do you guys think? It does have a lot of personality. All I can say is ketchup better be relevant to the story of what's going on here. Otherwise, people are going to be, this desk is disgusting. But if you're like, oh, this is from Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, you would be like, all right. So desk legs, we're not going to actually do the legs. I'm just going to throw something in here so that it looks a little bit more normal. Maybe steel rough. That's fine. We'll put steel rough in. There we go. We got some steel legs. No, I deleted the wrong one. There we go. So that's just so it doesn't bother me. Now, finally, I want to talk about the thermos. So metal is a little bit weird in Substance Painter because normally we would take a metal material and we would just make it all metal. And because metal has completely changes the way the reflectivity works, it's really important. Painter really has it where it's like you can paint this as either metal or not metal, and that will affect the way the texture works. That works pretty well in Arnold. In other ones, it would actually, so we were in RenderMan, it would actually make a color map and it would make a spec map. And wherever it was metal, it would take your color and put it in the spec, which is physically how it would actually work in real world light physics. Arnold is special, so it actually just takes a metalness map, and when you plug it into the metalness channel, it's like white here, black here. It works a lot simpler, but it doesn't make sense if you actually know how physics work, which I only know how physics work when it has to do with materials and lighting. Anyway, let's go ahead and do our thermos. So I'm going to start with this steel material, and I'm going to make some changes to it because it's not really what I want. And we'll have a little bit of roughness. Definitely going to need to tile that a little bit more. So we're going to start with this. Looks pretty good.
Guy's not a clean,
What'd you say?
not very clean guy.
No. Well, this is just roughness on the thermos. Any roughness that's not brushed metal, any thermos that's not brushed metal would look like this. But we're going to add rust to it, so you're correct. He's not a very clean guy. He was until the ketchup bomb went off. Then we just lost all hope for him. So hang on, I'm going to take this plastic ring real quick. I'm just going to make a fill layer. We're not actually going to export this texture because there's no point. We would just apply this dark material in Substance Painter. There we go. And then low roughness. There we go. Okay. So here's what I'm going to do to this one. I want to add some rust. And honestly, I got to admit, the default Substance Painter rust is actually really good. Both Rust Fine and Rust Coarse are pretty good. So we're going to just use Rust Coarse. There we go. And we're going to add a black mask. And this is all about the mask working together. So there's a couple of rust ones here. And surface rust is usually one that I like, right? Yes. So that's like one that's just been exposed to the elements for a little while. I do like to give it a little bit more rust. So I usually go with, I'm not going to use this, but I'll show it to you. Rust strips. Yeah, that's disgusting. Cavity rust. That's the one I really like. There you go. we got some cavity rust. We would linear dodge add. Global balance. There we go. So that one's not too bad. And then add some fills. So many grunges. Which one do I want to use? Concrete? No. Old concrete? No. Galvanic large? No, thank you. Oh, Grunge Mac 12 is really good. We could have used that for our scratches. And remember that next time. I actually really do like Grunge 12. I forgot about that one. Let's use Grunge 8. That's a good one. There we go. Ton of rust, super gross, except I'm actually going to use this to maybe subtract, maybe multiply. Let's see. So subtract is doing actually too good of a job. So is multiply. Go back to normal real quick. That one looks weird. Let's go with multiply. There we go. So now we got like some small localized rust. I like that. The thermos is actually not too bad. Not as bad as the desk or the coffee mug. I like that. I like that a lot. We're going to go with that. And then I'm going to add one more layer. This is just going to be black paint. So 0.2. Yeah. Yeah, we'll do 0.2 and then we'll set it to multiply. And then logo. Add a black mask. I don't think I brought it in. Okay. Cool. There is the AAA logo. Open. If you're bringing the AAA logo in, you need to invert it in Photoshop. Okay. Project. And we're going to stencil it. And again, we're gonna maybe do it in 2D, maybe do it in 3D. We'll see. Probably gonna do it in 2D. Be nice to know like what the camera angle was. I think it's gonna be like right here. So if we paint it here, it mostly looks good, but I think if we look at it at this side, it's gone a little rogue. It has. But the good thing about that is now that I know what to do, I can kind of put this over here, undo, and now I know exactly what to do. Ta-da! And so in this layer, this is the first time we actually need metal because we need the metal to be black. Roughness, pretty low. And we'll raise it up a little bit because it's like a sticker. Nah, actually I changed my mind. We'll just leave that as like that. There we go. So that is what we're going to import into Maya. Not too bad. Ketchup was a bit much, but it's pretty good. I still think if you turn the ketchup off, the desk looks pretty good. Oh, wait, we're on the wrong thing. Yeah. But we'll leave the ketchup on because you guys really liked it. Okay, if you put your logo on your thermos like this way, Tony does still want you to use a projection, which he'll show you how to use next class. So make sure that you use a projector. Let's go ahead and export. File. First, let's save. Go to export textures. So we're going to deselect the things we don't want, like the Chromebook. We do want the Chrome thermos. We do want the desk drawers, the desk base. We don't want the desk legs. We don't want the plastic ring. We do want the mug, the 2 desks, and the Chrome thermos. Decide where you want it to go because by default, it is not going to put it in your project folder. So we're going to go to Maya. No. Lectures. Project folder. SAL projects. Source images. Substance textures. Oh, here's my one from last month. New folder. 2021 11 ext or no interior create. There we go. The big thing here is make sure your file type is Targa and make sure that your output template is set to Arnold AI standard surface. And I think that's it. I think we're ready to export. Yep. Hit export. It's going to export all of your textures. We made a bunch of them. Open output directory and we can look at all of our fabulous textures we made. What is this? Chrome thermos. Oh, height. Yeah. And useless. Metal. Normal map. Roughness. Desk. You'll notice the metal for all the non-metals is black. We do not need to plug that into Arnold. It is a waste of texture resources. There's our normal map, our roughness map, color, height, metal, normal, roughness. Some of these we don't even need to do the height. I don't think we did any height on the coffee. If you see one that's like this, where you're like, oh, it's completely one color, you do not need to plug that in. You can actually just delete it. Goodbye, Substance. We will miss you. Now we have to deal with Maya. All right. So all that's left is to apply our textures. Now, you guys have already applied textures that you made from Photoshop, right? So you generally know how to apply textures. It's pretty much the same process. You take the material, you go to the material node, and you go to your material attributes and you just plug it in. We're going to start with the bump map, go to geometry, go to the checker box, go to file, and we should open up the hypershade so you guys can see what's going on here. Where are we? The mug. Wait, am I doing the mug? The mug doesn't actually have any bump. Well, we'll plug it in anyway. So, opacity. What? Never mind. We're going to skip that. We're going to go, let's do the desk first. The desk is where all the fun stuff's at. So bump map. But, oh wait, I see what the wrong. Yeah, no, right here. Bump map, file. So it has this bump node, and then connected in the bump value is the file node. And then of course we have our tiling. Any of your collage textures should not have any repeat in the tiling because that'll mess it up. Collage textures have no repeat. That is what tiled textures have. So go to image, and we're going to find where I put my textures, which is right here, desk base. Right now, we're not doing normal maps, we're just doing height maps, so we're going to use this. I can see there's detail in there. Now, whenever you're doing a black and white map, a grayscale map, you're going to want to change this color space from sRGB to raw. So you're going to do that for height, and then you're also going to check and make sure alpha is luminance is selected. Height, spec, and roughness, you're going to do that for. And metal. Okay, so we've got that plugged in. Next up, we're going to go for our specular roughness. Plug that in. There it is. That's the roughness. This one also needs to be changed to raw. And you're going to need to make sure alpha's luminance is checked. It is not. Check it. And then we'll go and add in our color map file. This one we can leave because it's color. I don't make the rules for that. I just follow the documentation I read online, and it all said to do that. So I was like, okay. And I'm like, you know what, Adobe, you make the software, you know better than me on that one. So here's our textures. We have all of our bump here, all of our color here, and all of our roughness here. This one doesn't have metallic because it is a wooden desk. So if we go, say if we press 6, we can see our textures. And if we render, 7%. That's gonna take a while. This is exactly why I use a scene that doesn't have a lot of materials in it to demo to you guys. Because that renders takes forever. If I had materials on everything, it would take like 6 times as long. Okay, we're rendering. Oh, too much bump. We're gonna dial that back. Oh, Matt. Hey, quit being a jerk, Maya. You know what I want. I like how because the coffee is flat where the ketchup stain is, there's no cuts there. It's silly, but it would work if it was working correctly. Desk base. Okay. So let's select this node and bump depth 0.1. There we go. Now we got to wait again. I should have put the drawers on before I rendered, but whatever. Dang, those scratches are still intense. So the new version of Substance has improved their height to their height maps. So when you export the height maps, they have a lot more detail, and I'm not used to it. It is better because you get better resolution. You just have to dial it back a lot more. I used to have to like turn it way up. Okay, so there's our scratches. We're kind of seeing them. They're probably still a little bit too much, but we're gonna go ahead and just let this one render for a little bit so we can see our texture. I'll dial it down before we do our next pass. By the way, now's a good time to ask questions while we're rendering, because we're pretty much just gonna do the same process, plugging in the maps and render. You guys have any questions? What do you think of Substance? Is it a good tool? Do you like the workflow where I put a bunch of masks on things and layered up stuff in the masks? Is that pretty helpful? That's exactly what it is, yes. Yes. Yeah, non-destructive workflow is where it's at. Now, by the way, we can still make adjustments to our material. Just because we have all that texture information isn't there doesn't mean I can't decide, you know what, I've got too much spec. I'm going to dial that back. Of course, it'll change my render time, so I'm not doing that right now because it'll re-render. But I could easily decide, you know what, I've got a little bit too much spec going on, and I could just lower that to like this. I would re-render. But let's stop rendering for a minute and let's plug in the rest of our textures. So let's go to desk drawer. Plug that in. I don't know why some of these are grayed out and some of them are not. Okay. So let's open up the Hypershade so we can see a little bit better what's going on. First off, I'm gonna take this bump and I'm gonna dial this down to like 2. Second off, we're gonna work with this material now. So let's put our bump map in for here. And we're gonna lower this to 0.02 like we did before. And source substance textures. Where are we? Desk base, desk drawer height. And then raw alpha's luminance should be on. Next up, let's get our roughness in. File. Textures. Draw. I really should have changed the file name so that int 2020-11 was not in there. Okay. Just would have made my life a little bit easier. And then don't forget, change these to raw. Change this to alpha is luminance. And that's pretty much it for that. Let's do the mug. We don't even need that. Color, file. The mug should be the last one. Base color. And since there's no height, the only thing else I'm going to plug in is the roughness. They didn't even make any height detail. But we did do roughness. I've changed that to raw. Alpha's luminance. Okay, pretty good. And finally, our chrome thermos. So color. Yep, that's fine for color. And then we have to do metalness for this one. And we have our metalness map. Bring that in. Notice the logo is black because the logo is paint, it's not metal. So this one has to be set to raw, and I'm betting, yep, we need alpha's luminance. And then we'll go roughness, file. Chrome, metal thermos, roughness. And finally, oh, wait, I forgot. Raw. See, it's so easy to just like get in a rhythm and then you're like, oh, I forgot to do that thing. Bump map, file, 0.02. Plug in our bump map. Substance textures. What was I doing? Right. There is hardly anything in there, but I do see some detail, so very subtle. raw. Okay. There we go. That's our material node. It gets very complicated and very spaghetti strings very quickly, doesn't it? Okay. If you are ready, let us render. Error. Is this going to crash?
Oh, it's,
Oh, we're crashing. Yep, yep, there it is. Oh, it's a shame we don't get to see our render. I knew I should have saved. My makes me wish there was something a lot harder in here than water. All right, let's see if our crash save actually worked. They usually don't, but it is Maya making a last ditch attempt to like, I'm gonna save. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I think the one that you clicked under it was like your previously manual.
Huh? No. So you know what we should do is now we save. I have learned, Maya. Check my textures real quick because this doesn't look right. No, it's plugged in there. I don't know why I can't see it. All right, let's render and see what happens. Hopefully it doesn't crash. Something is not right with our coffee mug. The coffee mug is invisible. Interruptions. Actually, you know what it probably was? We were messing around earlier down here in this geometry. Yep, the opacity. We accidentally plugged something into that. When we disconnected, it turned it black. I bet that has fixed it. It has. Refresh. It's like unwrapping presents on Christmas. Except for the computer doing it. always locks up around 7%. Probably, Zoom doesn't help. Don't render up there, render. What? Yeah, I could use your mouse a little bit. I wanted to render the whole thing so it looked pretty, okay? So, we do not recommend trying to do glass in Substance Painter in this class. It is an advanced process. If you really want to know about it, those of you who are on Discord, you can ask the one of our VIP members, Shane Proctor, who is actually the teacher of BSD. He has a really good workflow for painting glass materials in Substance Painter. If you ask, he may share one of his videos for you. If you want to get in there and try it out, it is really cool. But because Substance Painter doesn't do glass refraction very well, what you're effectively doing is you're making the color of the glass black in Substance Painter, and then just ignoring that when you bring it into Arnold. So Shane has a really good demo for it. You can ask him about that if you're really interested. It is a good workflow. I've done it myself. It does work. It works in Arnold. It's just, we've tried it in the past in this class, and only like 10% of the students got it. Everybody else was really confused and they hated it, so we stopped teaching it. But for those of you who want to try it out, ask Shane. He's got really good things. At some point it'll look at something there. Oh, here we go. We got our mug. Ooh, and I can just barely see our coffee stick. You guys said the mug was too messy. What? The denoisers not on. I'll turn it on later. It wouldn't do the denoiser for it will reset. I actually don't know why the denoiser starts to render. It actually doesn't if you're on IPR. But if you're doing your current frame, it has to. You have to restart the render. But the reason it sometimes does it is because when you're in IPR, anytime you do anything, it's going to start IPR. IPR is like you changed something. Look at that sticky, gross ketchup you guys got. Guess we could push the bump a little bit further. And maybe the color. It's always weird because it looks so strong in substance, and I have to just remember that it's going to get dialed back in Arnold because we have all the lights going on and everything. That's the stuff, kind of stuff that you need to go and make the array from. So we should go back into Substance Painter, adjust those layers a little bit, kind of push the color, push the height. We could try and play around with the actual height node in Arnold, but we were getting really, really strong scratches. So I wanted to tone those down, which means that we would probably need to go back into Painter and catch up if you wanted to have like height catch up. Right now, it's just negating the scratches where the ketchup is, which would mean that you have ketchup stuck in the scratches. Super good. I didn't want to do the ketchup. One of you guys was really into the ketchup. Oh, our scratches are too intense on the desk drawer. Now we're rendering. That's where we're leaving it. Class is almost over. I have to do attendance in like 7 minutes. No Arnold with the stupid number squares. Underman doesn't do that. Passes. Okay. I like Renderman. I miss Renderman. Talk to Frank, he'd be like, you should be using V-Ray. Frank's crazy about V-Ray. Yes. We taught it for about 3 years. We stopped doing it because the installation process was such a pain that some of our students couldn't get it installed by the do. It was a small percentage, but it was enough that the higher ups were not happy. We did, but it's really technically complicated. Our surface is looking pretty good too. Hard to see some of the rust because it's kind of in a dark area that we're in. So we did, but we still ended up manually troubleshooting it with probably about 5 or 6 students a month. And be careful. Plus, then I heard that Pixar pulled their support for their non-commercial license, so it was just going to get shittier and shittier, harder and harder to use. They really cared a lot more about their commercials, which makes sense. Those are the ones that are paying you for something. For 3 minutes. Can you do it, Arnold? In this scenario. Now, in this scenario, that's actually important. There we go. Not bad. I'm proud of our interior tech. So the reason we don't recommend doing substance materials on everything is, in general, not a lot of your things in your scene are going to be in close enough detail that you're going to be able to see all that substance detail we put in. We're doing these specific objects because they're in the close-up. The other objects that I didn't recommend are either glass or the UVs are a huge pain. The MacBook, the UVs are a huge pain. The desk, the UVs are a huge pain. The picture frame, honestly, really well. I wouldn't do the wall. By the way, make sure you guys fix the UVs on the wall and the floor. They're jacked up for some reason. So just do a replaner and then be able to fix that. But you'll notice when you're doing the texture on the wall, it tends to get like stretched out and distorted and ugly. Fix the UVs and fix that. See it all the time when students have brick and then it's like nice brick texture, really stretched out bricks. And I was like, how did you not notice that was garbage? All right, everyone. So I'm going to end the recording right now. We're just going to take roll afterwards. Everybody watching the video, I hope you enjoyed this Substance Painter stuff. And ooh, actually, our denoise was on. Look, actually, really good. All right. Anyway, have a good one. If you have any questions, come see us in Discord. I'll be happy to answer any and all Substance Painter questions. All right, everybody. Have a good night or good afternoon.